Hey guys, a couple months back I did a reloading video on rifle ammunition, specifically the 7.62 by 54 rimmed for the Mosin Nagant, and got a pretty favorable response. I got some nice comments on there, so I thought I would follow up with a little video on reloading for a handgun, specifically the 45 ACP. Again, just like the other video, this is kind of more geared towards another beginner such as myself. So if a lot of this seems redundant or very basic to you, and you're a more experienced reloader, I apologize in advance. Also to the other beginners or novices like myself, this is in no way a step-by-step guide on how to reload. Of course, you want to consult all the loading manuals and get professional help if needed. This is just to kind of get you started on the path towards reloading for handguns. So what I've done is I have just a few cases of 45 ACP. It's been fired once out of my 1911. I think it's my Springfield 1911 A1, the GI. Once fired brass. The only thing I've done to this brass so far is I've just cleaned it. I put it in the tumbling media and gave it a little bit of a cleaning. The primers are still in there. Nothing has been done besides cleaning. So let's just go ahead and go through some of the steps, and I hope this is helpful for you. So the first thing that you want to do is set up the resizing die. Now the difference between rifle and pistol cartridges, for the most part, the pistol cartridges require an extra step. These usually come with 3 dies, sometimes 4 if you get an extra crimping die, but basically they come with 3 dies versus the standard 2 die sets for bottleneck rifle cartridges. And I'll explain what that third step is in just a minute. So let's go ahead and get this set up. What you want to do is, now this is with the Lee set. If you're using a different manufacturer, of course, just follow their instructions. But for the Lee, it tells us to go ahead and put the shell all the way up and maintain pressure on the ram so that this doesn't move. And what you want to do is go ahead and screw this all the way down until it just touches the shell holder. And I'm getting some contact there. Once you do that, you just tighten it in, tighten the lock ring. You do not do the overcamming like you would with a rifle cartridge. You just let it touch the shell holder and that's it. Alright, so let's go ahead. I'm going to load in the first spent shell. As you can see, this one was a little bit deformed, whether it was from extraction or when it, if it hit the ground, and as you can see the mouth is pretty bent, but that's okay because we're going to get all those little wrinkles out in this first step right here. Put it in the shell holder and just do a full stroke of the ram. It resizes the case, and it also pops out the used primer all in one step. So that's the first step. Let's go ahead and do another one. And if you listen closely, you might hear that little ping when the primer pops out. Deprimed and resized. So I'm going to go ahead and do the remaining 8 here, and then off camera to save time, and then we'll go to the next step, which is trimming. Be right back. Just to give you a different perspective, a little bit more of a close-up. Alright. Okay guys, so in this next step we have to check the length of the cases and make sure that they're not over the maximum allowable length, for obviously for safety reasons, and also so we can get these finished cartridges to reliably cycle and chamber in the firearm that they're going to be shot out of. So using the Lyman manual again, it says that for the 45 ACP, the recommended trim length is, where is it? 0.888 inches. The maximum allowable length is 0.898. Usually what I like to do is with my once fired brass, I go ahead and trim the cases to the recommended length. It is a very time-consuming process, but it's supposed to help with accuracy. It's supposed to make the ammunition more uniform and more consistent. And especially in a semi-auto pistol, it helps you get a reliable crimp on the bullet every time. And so for that reason, I just it's kind of a pain in the butt, but I go ahead and I do it. I do the same with the rifle too. The Lyman manual recommends that you trim the cases no more than 4 times. Of course, you want to keep good records. After the 4th trimming, you have to discard them. They don't recommend that you reload any brass cases after they've been trimmed 4 times. If you get new unfired brass, you can trim them to be uniform, and that doesn't count because they haven't been fired yet, and the brass near the mouth of the cartridge hasn't flowed and it's not weakened. So that doesn't count. So technically you could trim them 5 times there, but basically the rule of thumb is 4 trimmings. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get the trimmer set up and I'll show you how I do it. Alright guys, so regardless of whether these cases are less than the maximum allowable length of 0.898 inches, I'm just going to go ahead and trim them to a uniform length, like we just talked about a minute ago. So let's go ahead and measure this first case and see where we're at. Now this one comes in at just under, sorry about that, it's at 0.893 and a half. 0.894, and I've already calibrated this trimmer off camera just for the sake of time, so let me just go ahead and show you what I do to trim the cases. First thing you got to do is get it into the little holder there. This thing is universal. It'll accept pretty much any rimmed or rimless case, and I have the .45 caliber little trim, not a collet, but it's the arbor, I believe. Well, anyways, it's the appropriate size to trim this cartridge. And as you can see, it comes with several, and you can order more calibers as needed. So let's go ahead and get this lined up. Make sure it goes in there. Now you have to lock it down nice and tight, and let's go ahead and start trimming. And we want to try to get it as close to 0.888 as possible. Let's see where we're at. .887 and a half. Oops. All right, and that's pretty close. So we're good there. Let's do another one. See how much this one is. 887 and a half. Perfect. And we're taking off the excess brass and getting them down to a uniform length for safety and for accuracy. That one's perfect, 0.888. Alright, I won't do the rest. You get the general idea. However, when you trim the brass, it does tend to leave a little bit of a knife edge, and you can definitely feel it there. It's a sharp little edge, and that has to be removed. The process is called deburring, and it's real simple, very fast. You just have to get one of these deburring tools, like this one here. It's an RCBS, and you just go in, give it a couple of twists on the inside, you flip it over to the other side of the tool, and you take out the little knife edge on the top, on the outside as well. And now it's nice and smooth. That sharp little edge has been removed. So you want to make sure you do that before you load the bullets in there, okay? Okay, so now that the cases are trimmed to a uniform length, what I usually like to do is, can you see right there? You can see that there's some residue in the primer pocket right around the flash hole there. This is not mandatory, but I would recommend it because if you can get that soot out of there, that residue from the primer from the previous firing, you'll have a better chance of reliable ignition of the gunpowder when you make the new cartridge, and it just makes it a little bit cleaner. And it's very easy. You just take one of these primer pocket cleaning tools. And in this case, it's a Lee product. There's other manufacturers, and you just real quickly put it in there. There's a large end for large pockets and a small one for small pockets. The 45 ACP uses a large pistol primer, so I use the large side. Well, anyways, you just go in there and give it a few twists. Get some of that gunk out of there and get it a little bit cleaner. That's already looking better. And that's all you need. I mean, this is going to be for a practice shooting out of a handgun. It doesn't have to be spotless like it would for a bench rest rifle, but it's just a little bit cleaner, and it looks better, and it increases the chances of a reliable ignition. So that's what I usually do next. All right, now this is the step that I was referring to earlier, where it's an extra step compared to reloading for a bottleneck rifle cartridge. And it's just the simple fact that for a straight-walled pistol cartridge like this 45 ACP, you can't resize the case and expand the mouth enough to accept a new bullet in the same step. It has to be done in two separate steps. So far, we've resized the case. We did a full-length resize. We trimmed the case down to the recommended trim to length. We cleaned the primer pocket. And now we have to do what's called expanding, where you actually add just a little bit of a flare, kind of give it a little bit of a bell shape right around the mouth of the case right here. So I've set up my expanding die here, and let's go ahead and do that step. And you don't want to do a whole lot, you just want to do the bare minimum, not just to maximize case life, but to make it easier to get the proper crimp after you seat the bullet. And you just want to give it just a little bit of a flare so that you can put a new bullet in there. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but I don't know if you can see that. There's just a slight little belling of the mouth of the case there. That's a little bit easier to see. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just ever so slightly flared out so that the new bullet will go down in there, and then you crimp it. You just give it a little bit of a modest crimp to close that flaring that we did in this step. Let's try another one. Yeah. It's got a little bit of a flare there. It's very slight. Now the next step is, at least the way I do it, is to go ahead and put a primer in there and then charge the case. I kind of went over priming and charging in detail in the rifle video, so if you're interested in that, please refer to my rifle reloading video and it'll show you what I do. I do use the ram priming die, and I have an automatic powder dispenser that I kind of explained in the other video. So I'm going to skip ahead. We're going to prime and charge these cases off camera, and then we'll do the last couple of steps after that. All right. Just real quick, this one flared nicely, and you can see it a little bit easier on this one. Sorry about that. Do you see how, let's get it in focus. There, do you kind of see how it flares out a little bit right at the mouth? I think you can see it there. It just has the smallest, slightest little bell shape right there on the mouth of the case. And that's all you need. So my other ones were kind of minimal. I'm going to go back and add a little bit more flare, but I believe that's kind of what it should look like right there. Again, if any of you more experienced guys are watching, if I'm doing this wrong or I'm adding too little or too much, please chime in and let me know. I'd really appreciate it. Alright guys, finally we're at the point where I've loaded a few rounds. Again, priming, charging, and bullet seating, they're all covered in a little bit more detail in my, my other video on the rifle ammo. But I ran into a little bit of a problem. Let me show you what I found here. I loaded my hand reloads, to the recommended length in the manual using this powder, Alliant Blue Dot, and the recommended length was 1.275 inches. I have a beautiful Fiocchi factory round here to help me out, and these are a little bit shorter, but that's okay. You always want to stay with one manual and stay consistent with it. I'm loading 230 grain round ball ammo. It's these Berries copper plated bullets. Your typical 230 grain ball, and the nice thing is that they're completely covered. There's no exposed lead, so it's a little bit nicer for your bore and less lead exposure, blah blah blah. So 230 grain ball, and here's what I did. I took out the barrel of my Kimber 1911 to check the headspace and to make sure that these reloads are freely going into the chamber. First, let me show you what it should look like with a couple of factory rounds. Here's that Fiocchi 230 grain round ball, and look how nicely it just drops right in. Perfect headspace. Even though this overall length is a few thousandths shorter than mine, it's fine. It's under the maximum overall length for this cartridge, but that's how it should go. It just kind of goes right in there, nice and free. And let me show you with another factory round that I have here. I happen to have handy. This is Spear Lawman. Just goes right in. All right, that's what you want. Now look what happened on my first attempt here. Let me get these factory rounds out of the way so I don't confuse myself. Here it is to the specified overall length, 1.275 inches. But watch what happens. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not the one. Let's try that again. See that? It doesn't freely go in. Let me get that to focus. Feel that? See that resistance? It's not going in, and at first I thought it was that my cartridges were too long, so I matched them up to the slightly shorter factory rounds. I still had the same thing, even when I seated the bullet a little bit deeper. I have a headspace problem. So, and I'm going to do a separate video on this because it's a kind of a different topic altogether. Today I just happened to get the Lee factory crimp die. I got it for 45 ACP and for 40 cal / 10 millimeter. And here's what I did. Let's look at one of these rounds here that I haven't crimped yet. All right. I don't know if you can see it, but there, you see that slight little bit of daylight there between the mouth of the case and the actual bullet. All right, I'm going to hold that for you there, and now compare that to the factory round. See how that shell is nice and tapered? You don't see any daylight between the bullet and the mouth of the case. When I look at mine, just see that slight little bit of leftover from when I flared it. And that's what's holding the cartridge up. Most of these semi-auto pistol cartridges headspace right there on the mouth of the case. and when it goes into the chamber, there's a small little ledge. You probably can't see it, but there's a small little ledge that catches onto the, I guess it lines up right here. And if it's flared out too much, if it's not a sufficient crimp, it's not going to get in there and chamber correctly. So that's what's going on. Here, let me show you that factory round. See how it just goes in nice and easy? So what I did was I used this new factory crimp die, and here's one of my reloads. After I did the crimp, see how there's a nice seal there. A nice little modest taper crimp. It doesn't have to be excessive. It's not like a revolver cartridge where you actually physically push the mouth into the cannelure. There's no cannelure groove on these bullets. You just need a slight little taper crimp. And my reloading dies were not giving me a nice crimp, or either that or I was expanding the mouth of the case too much. Either ways, here's how it looks after giving it a little bit more of a crimp with a separate die, just like the factory round. Alright guys, it's the moment of truth. All 8 of them went into the magazine normally, so that's good. So far so good. Here we go. There's the Kimber 1911. Let's go ahead and chamber the first round, doing it in a safe direction. Let's see if they eject. Keep our finger off the trigger. Perfect. That should be good. Of course, the only way to know for sure is to take this to the range and try these reloads out. So I'll let you know how that goes, and of course I'll do a separate video on using the factory crimp die. Well, that's pretty much it. I know this video is probably really long, but I hope this was helpful for you. Again, I'm not an expert by any means, and this is not a thorough how-to on how to reload, so just use your common sense and follow all instructions, all the instructions in the manual, and stay safe. But I do hope it was helpful for you. Thanks.